Tēnā koutou katoa, ko te ahu Pātiki te maunga, ko te waikirikiri te awa, no Springston aho, tēnā koutou katoa. Today I'm going to talk about circularising our bioeconomy, which is transforming our current agricultural systems where we have inputs of fertilisers and feeds largely from overseas into a system where these nutrients are obtained largely locally and recycled as far as possible in agricultural systems. And this will transform both our environmental quality and our economic outlook. And indeed, I would argue that it's essential for New Zealand's agricultural future. So in our current agricultural systems, we import nutrients and feeds from overseas. So we mine phosphate rock in Western Sahara. It's shipped halfway around the world to New Zealand, where it's refined and spread upon our pastures. And we're also spreading a lot of unwanted passengers with this in the form of cadmium, which is a toxic metal that accumulates in your kidneys and causes renal failure in old age. We also import urea and other nitrogenous fertilizers that are very expensive, particularly at the moment when the price of oil is high. So the supply is not guaranteed and the cost is high at present. We apply these to our soils. Now the effect of applying these fertilizers to our soils is a depletion in organic carbon. And so I won't say where this picture was taken, but you might notice the light colour of the soil, which is indicative of a soil where the organic carbon has been severely depleted. Because of this, we actually have to increase the application of fertilizers. So we're not only depleting the carbon, but we're actually increasing the cost of producing the soil. Meanwhile, these contaminants are increasing in the soils. And if you model the future, we can see in some cases the contaminants are already at threshold levels, and in other cases the soil will fail within the next decade or the next 50 years. So there's an urgent need to do something to change the system. For those of you who enjoy eating spinach or beetroot, it's likely that the cadmium levels in these vegetables is already above the food safety standards, not to mention those who enjoy a steak and kidney pie. So a lot of these nutrients aren't actually used to grow our plants, but rather they contaminate our waterways, either through leaching or runoff. And this is a recent photograph of Lake Waikari in northern Waikato, where the colour of the water changes from brown to orange to green, depending on what species of algae is blooming at the time. And of course, this is well known in the media. We see a lot of our rivers are unswimmable, and this is not the image that we want to portray for our overseas markets where we export our food products to. So as well as these nutrients that are wasted, we generate a lot of biological waste that we need to dispose of. That may be burned, where the valuable organic carbon is returned to the atmosphere. It may be discharged into the ocean. This is sewage, and raw sewage discharge still occurs in some places in New Zealand, such as Gisborne. Or it may go to landfill. Or, not shown here, it may be underutilised. So we may have a potentially valuable material that is simply green spread as a raw compost. So what's the solution? How do we unlock this bioeconomy, this circular bioeconomy? This will involve the reuse of our biological wastes. We have a lot of carbon and a lot of nutrients that we currently dispose of, that currently will go to landfill, are burned, are underutilised, or even discharged into waterways. Well, that seems like a no-brainer. Why is it not happening? Well, often these organic wastes are mismatched to local agricultural systems. So they might be geographically mismatched, or they may have properties that make them undesirable, or they may contain contaminants. One example would be biosolids, which is the solid product of human waste treatment. Sewage sludge contains high concentrations of certain trace elements that can become contaminants in soil. So how can research enable the reutilization of these materials? This depleted soil that is very low in organic carbon can usefully receive organic amendments such as composts that are tailored to the site. Now the benefit of this, adding these, is not only to increase the soil carbon, but it also reduces the plant uptake of the toxic cadmium that I told you about. So you can apply this material to the soil and it reduces cadmium uptake by the crop plant, while leaving other essential micronutrients such as zinc unchanged. The bottles of wine that we all enjoy result in large volumes of waste, liquid waste, but also grape marc. Now, a lot of grape marc goes to landfill. Some of it is green spread, but potentially it could be fed to cattle. Why would we want to do that instead of green spreading it? Well, if we even say it's a raw compost, it's worth about $15 a tonne. If it's fed to cattle, it's worth about $500 a tonne. So we can massively increase the value of this material, but it's not very palatable to stock often. So they're working with Manaki Whenua, Landcare Research, and Manpreet Dami. These wastes can be transformed microbially so that they can potentially be fed to livestock. And this can replace some of the 2 million tonnes of palm kernel expeller that we currently import from places such as Indonesia, where rainforest is being destroyed. And this product here was recently shown by one of our students, Hattie Thompson-Morris, that it contains certain trace elements above the fodder safety standards. So it actually may be harming our agricultural systems. This is a black soldier fly, which looks fairly yucky, and it is fairly yucky. But one of the yucky things it will do, this is its larvae. It looks yucky, is yucky. These larvae will actually eat biosolids. This is work in collaboration with ESR, Dr. Kristen Baum. So it shows these larvae will eat biosolids, produce valuable protein that's low in the trace elements that are found high concentrations in biosolids. So what could you do with that protein? Well, it could be used to feed chickens. It could be used to feed pigs or fish. However, while it's maybe currently scientifically or biophysically acceptable, it's not currently socially acceptable. So this is a target for future research. Our waterways that are so degraded could be planted. We know this, we've done lots of native plantings. Well, how can we do this better? Can we actually make money from the native plantings we use to intercept nutrients? Can we generate valuable products such as manuka honey? These same native plantings may also be receiving environments for treated human effluent. Instead of discharging effluent into waterways or into the ocean, it can be used to grow native products. So this research is now being used around New Zealand, and the Christchurch City Council is going to plant 100 hectares of native trees to take the wastewater from the town of Aotearoa. Now, the exciting research opportunity here is to look at our native plants and their root zones. We have studied our native plants in terms of identifying them, but the chemistry in the root zones is largely unknown. Some of them, such as manuka and kanuka, kill human pathogens. Why would that occur? What's the evolutionary advantage for a New Zealand native plant that's evolved separately from people to kill human pathogens. Well, it also kills bacteria and archaea responsible for nitrification. So this is this plant, in addition to killing pathogens, may actually reduce nitrate leaching, and it does so in some instances. Other plants do different things. So can we actually plant smarter when we plant our waterways? Can we get the better bang for our buck? So we're developing decision support tools. This is with Dr. Colin Merck from Manaki Whenua, where we can have give the environment, and it will produce a list of suitable native species for that environment. So if we manage to pull this off, this can benefit our economy by at least $2 billion per year. And it can prolong, but maybe not forever, it can prolong the life of our agricultural soils. So future New Zealand agriculture will be mosaics of native species in agricultural landscapes where we are producing food that's consistent with what our overseas consumers want. And I'd like to acknowledge that this is largely the work of postgraduate students who are fantastic and ultimately the reason I'm here. So thank you.
Thank you, Brett, for that fascinating talk. I really enjoyed it. Are there any questions? Why does everyone look down? Look up.
So question and commentary. I'd be interested in how you deal with that. I'm a biologist. I kill that chemistry, but I remember part of my career, the great calamity trying to create a bioeconomy by taking primary trees surge, putting it subsurface, and planting eucalypts, okay? So not natives. 3 years later, those eucalypts were all dead, and we had a real problem. Getting nutrients going to soil and no nutrient uptake, so we had failure. So biological systems are inherently unstable. That's my statement. So my question really comes back to when you try and bring in biological history, and the positives are there, are obvious, and they're highly desirable, but they can fail. And so I hope Christchurch City Council has a plan B when all those plantings fail. Could you comment to me about the risks of this from that perspective? Not trying to undermine the story, I'm simply trying to understand how.
No, it's a very good point. They can fail for a variety of usually it's unforeseen reasons, and weeds is one example. So the Christchurch City Council, to mitigate that, have implemented trials over the long term and will implement the planting very slowly. And they are going to apply rates at a small fraction, less than half of what we've applied to our trial. So we know that the system is in principle stable for at least 50 to 100 years.
I think that I'm coming from a perspective of managing our risks going forward. Is there a sweet spot? Should everything be going that way, or do we actually allow other forms of intervention as well?
It has to be a mixture. But also relating to your comment, our current biological systems are not so stable. We can see that. Yeah.
Very quick question.
Quick one. So a lot of the work we've done on the bioresource processing lines is transportation costs are some of the things that kill you there, because you're moving very low value stuff from one place to another, but you're using a lot of energy to do that. Is this something you've encountered as well?
Yes, absolutely. So the goal is to maximise the value. So if we can convert it to animal fodder that's worth $500 per tonne, it can travel the length of the country, just as we import stuff from Indonesia. If it's $15 a tonne compost, it can only be applied locally, clearly.
Well, we're going to have to stop there because of time constraints, but let's join our hands together and thank Brett again for